But they're at the BBC, as well as being a nonce factory.
Yeah.
Obviously, it is a nonce factory, isn't it? All these nonces that they keep churning out. There also seems to be a correlation between the BBC and hosting Islamic terrorists just before they carry out an attack. I think the thing that shocked me most, and I don't know if you're even aware of this, Taleb al-Abdullah, the guy we just talked about, the guy who did the Magdeburg Christmas attack, appeared on the BBC in 2019.
That doesn't surprise me. It wasn't an episode of Doctor Who with Alex
Rudikabana.
No.
But I found that quite shocking. So Alex Rudikabana has been on the BBC.
Yeah.
Taleb al-Abdullah has been on the BBC talking about how he's looking after refugees and stuff like that. So there seems to be a correlation. So somebody wrote, and it's quite funny, but they wrote the BBC, as well as being a nonce factory, because obviously it is a nonce factory, isn't it? All these nonces that they keep churning out. There also seems to be a correlation between the BBC and hosting Islamic terrorists just before they carry out an attack. I mean, what is going on? Is this as sinister as it appears about this organisation?
That, for me, that's just one of those coincidences. If they work for the BBC like the nonces do, that's different.
Yeah.
But as a news agency interviewing tens of thousands of people every week, you're bound to come across people like that. If they work for the BBC, that would be different.
You're bound to come across, but they didn't. I mean, Axel Rudikabana wasn't just being interviewed. He actually had a part in a Doctor Who episode, or not an episode. There was something where he actually had a part dressed up as Doctor Who.
It was an advertisement for Doctor Who, the kids' version of it or something.
Yeah. So these are not tangential, like these. So we have two known terrorists and major terrorist attacks we're talking about. We're not talking about one of 26. We're talking about two fundamental, the Southport attack and this one, which is a major, attack in Germany. Both have been interviewed by the BBC.
Yeah, but again, when they, over a decade, they've interviewed millions of people, and you will get these coincidences like that.
I think they should go through every interview they've got and just arrest everybody.
I think the journalists are. Every time something happens now, they go through the old BBC library. Oh yeah, he worked there. Oh yeah, he did there. Oh yeah, it was on that one.
And then I sent you a
MI5
clip.
might be tapped into the BBC library looking at potential suspects.
I sent you a clip the other day. It wasn't BBC, it was MSNBC, a lady called Mara Gray. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. And this just shows how these awful media institutions are brainwashed themselves and are trying to brainwash us. And she was talking about, and this is somebody who she was on NBC, but she worked for the Wall Street Journal, or the Washington Post, one of these very august publications. And she was talking about Bloomberg's spending of money for his campaign, because apparently he spent $500 million on his campaign to be the mayor of New York.
Right.
And she said, so this is an established presenter, supposedly a financial reporter, and she said to the grey-haired guy sitting opposite, another news presenter, $500 million spent. We have 367 million people in this country. That means he could have given each of those people $1 million each. And the guy sitting opposite went, yeah, that's right. And this shows how imbecilic they are. They can't even do basic maths. It's actually $1 each that you could give everybody in the country. But on air, she said it, the guy agreed, and nobody corrected her. They are constantly feeding this. They hear what they want to hear. They then spew that crap out to the audience, and they are indoctrinating and brainwashing the audience all the time. And that was one of the starkest examples I've ever seen of how much crap is coming out of these organisations.
I did watch that. My take on that was she was extremely poor for not being able to work out the maths, and should have done it beforehand, should have known it. The issue there for me was because the interviewer and her were on the same side, he's got no incentive to ever question anything she says. So you could be on their side and say anything, and your brain doesn't kick into it.
Yeah.
I do it. I say things. Are you sure about that? What?
Yeah.
Because I'm here. Because I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm analysing what you're saying.
When we're talking, we're listening to each other, and there's critical faculties happening. I'm critically listening to what you're saying and thinking, is that right? And then I'm saying, is that right? And you're doing the same to me. Sorry, you're doing the same to me, aren't you?
But on those shows, they're not, because they've been told you don't criticise each other.
Yeah.
Because whatever you say,
you don't question anything.
Whatever you say, I'm bound to agree with.
Yeah.
So why am I critically thinking about it? Because I'm going to agree with it.
Yeah.
And when those mistakes happen, that's when you realise they're not even listening to each other.
No.
They're just repeating the stuff they've been.
They're
told
not listening to themselves.
Yeah.
They're not listening to the rubbish they're spouting themselves, are they?
You can make mistakes
Yeah.
about the numbers. Everyone can make a mistake, like the sausages. Free the sausages. We can all make those mistakes. But if I was sat here saying free the sausages, you'd go, Nick, what do you mean sausages?
What the hell are you talking about?
Or if I said, let's give everybody £1 million, and you'd have went, Nick, that's
those numbers don't work.
They just don't work out for me.
Yeah.
But they're not listening to each other. They're just repeating the same old narrative, the platitudes, and not even questioning what someone on their side says.
Yeah. These organisations, the BBC, are vast echo chambers, aren't they? And they're echo chambers of government propaganda and all the time, basically. And journalists need to change now. They need to become critical again. They need to become proper journalists, basically. And
a bit like, everyone should be more like Andrew Neil.
Yes. Yeah.
Who will rip anyone a new one.
Yeah.
Because his job is to tear you apart and find out what you don't know and why you're talking rubbish.
Yeah.
We need more journalists like him.
Yeah. We need them to come back.